Welcome to News Briefs. Today is Tuesday, May 27, 2025. So, starting with United States politics, some interesting international moves from the Trump administration.
Yeah, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was at CPAC Poland,
Right. Just before their elections, she was there with John Eastman, and the whole event was framed as fighting globalists.
and she met with the Polish President Duda as well.
Yeah.
Seems like a clear signal of, you know, building alliances.
Definitely projecting influence. And domestically, the USDA appointments really seem to reflect that farmers first agenda.
They do. You've got Jerry Sonnenberg in Colorado, Kurt Blomgren in Minnesota, both appointed state executive directors for the FSA.
And these aren't just any appointees, right? They're longtime farmers themselves.
Exactly. It suggests a real focus on having people in those key FSA roles who align directly with the administration's agricultural base.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, fundraising is back in the headlines. President Trump's calling for an investigation into Act Blue.
Alleging illegal conduct. But, his own campaign isn't exactly avoiding scrutiny either.
True. Questions about foreign donations, transparency on WinRed, especially those anonymous crypto donations.
It just highlights this ongoing concern, really on both sides, about money in politics and where it's coming from.
And then there's Congress. The House just narrowly passed that big, beautiful bill.
Narrowly is the word. It's got tax and spending cuts, but also a massive debt ceiling increase, around $4 trillion.
Yeah, roughly that. So now it heads to the Senate, and that's expected to be, well, contentious.
Definitely. And Moody's has already put out estimates suggesting the deficit could climb to maybe 9% of GDP by 2035 because of this.
Wow, that's a big potential impact.
It is. And you're already seeing some fiscal fear maybe hitting the markets. Long-term Treasury yields are up,
Right, you mentioned the 20-year bond yield hit 5%.
highest since it was reintroduced back in 2020.
Okay, let's move to immigration. The situation at the border, it sounds like it's still quite complex.
Very much so. The administration is continuing releases to nonprofit shelters near the United States-Mexico border.
But FEMA seems to have some issues, sent letters expressing significant concerns.
Yeah, concerns about potentially illegal activities, even hinting at smuggling violations. They've actually suspended payments to some shelters while they investigate.
Interesting. And shelters like the Holding Institute, Annunciation House, they're still getting people from ICE from all over.
That's right, people from Russia, Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Honduras, Venezuela, China. It shows the difficulty the government faces in deporting people from certain countries quickly.
And there's talk about ending the Flores Agreement, the one limiting family detention to 20 days.
Yes, the administration signaled intent to end it. They're pointing to a really drastic drop in border releases with notices to appear.
What kind of drop are we talking?
Well, they claim only 7 between February and April this year, compared to like over 130,000 in the same period last year. It's a huge difference.
That is stark. We're also seeing specific impacts, like a Supreme Court TPS order affecting Venezuelans who are living here legally.
All right, ALA reported on that. And also, the administration revoked temporary humanitarian parole for about 300,000 Cubans.
Leading to detentions, potential deportations,
Hmm.
even affecting that pro-Trump rapper El Funky.
Correct. And there are reports about icy arrests happening inside courts, even after cases are dismissed, in New York, Phoenix, LA, Seattle.
There's also an academic angle here. A Georgetown Journal article argues mass deportation policies have disproportionate gender consequences.
Yes, increasing risks of gender violence for migrant women and girls. The authors urge the U.S. to uphold international law and investigate ICE detention abuses.
And internationally, the OIM condemned attacks on displacement sites in Gaza. Huge numbers displaced just recently.
Nearly 180,000 between May 15th and 25th. They report 80% of Gaza is now under displacement orders or are no-go zones. It's dire.
Okay, turning to the economy. We mentioned the market jitters, but what about the labor market itself? March data just came out.
National job openings rate held steady at 4.3%. But there's variation state by state. Minnesota was highest, D.C. lowest.
Any notable shifts?
Some decreases, yeah. Massachusetts saw a 1.5 percentage point drop, New Mexico 1.2 points down. Absolute number fell notably in Massachusetts and New York, too.
So a bit of a mixed picture regionally. What about other key indicators released today?
Consumer confidence saw a big jump. The Conference Board Index rose to 98.0 in May, way up from 85.7 and beating expectations.
That sounds positive.
It is, but durable goods orders for April fell pretty sharply, down 6.3%. And non-defense capital goods ex-aircraft, a key investment measure, also dropped 1.3%.
So consumers are feeling better, but maybe businesses are pulling back a bit on spending.
That could be the interpretation. Housing prices are still up year over year, but the pace is slowing slightly. S&P Case-Shiller up 4.1% annually, but FHFA was actually down 0.1% month over month.
Okay. And internationally, we're seeing President Trump renewing tariff threats. EU goods, Apple.
Yes, talk at 50% on EU goods, 25% on Apple. Invesco thinks it's likely part of a negotiation strategy, but it adds to volatility.
Meanwhile, in Europe, there's tension with Hungary over a new law affecting LGBTQ+ events and facial recognition.
Right, 17 EU nations urged Hungary to revise it.
Yeah.
The European Commission has serious concerns, also about another bill monitoring organizations. The EU is still holding back funds, about $18 billion.
And that funding hold seems to be impacting their economy. Hungary was the only EU economy to contract in Q1.
Seems connected, yes. Elsewhere, the IMF has projections for Kiribati expecting growth to moderate and inflation to rise temporarily before falling.
Got it. Let's switch to technology. Big moves in AI and data Salesforce buying Informatica.
Yeah, for about $8 billion. It's all about integrating cloud data management, especially AI-driven capabilities, right into the Salesforce platform. Big play for various sectors.
And crypto investment continues. Trump Media planning to raise $3 billion for crypto assets.
That's the plan, apparently. And MicroStrategy just keeps buying more Bitcoin, another 4,020, taking their total over 580,000 BTC.
Alongside the investment, there's also focus on sustainability, right? HPE has a plan for reducing AI's carbon footprint.
Yes, focusing on energy efficiency right from the design stage.
Aye.
It's becoming a bigger conversation, the environmental impact of all this AI power.
And corporate stances, AT&T's CEO reaffirmed their commitment to DEI policies after acquiring Lumen's fiber assets.
Even amidst some industry pressure against those kinds of initiatives, shows it's still a key corporate consideration.
Internationally, Canada's boosting its AI ecosystem with a new hub in Ottawa via Algonquin College and AWS.
While in Asia, Xiaomi in China plans a huge $28 billion R&D investment, and India's Tata Group hired an ex-Intel exec to lead a new chip plant.
It's a global race in tech R&D and manufacturing.
Absolutely. Semiconductors, AI, everyone wants a piece of the action and more self-sufficiency.
Okay, on to science. Some fundamental discoveries happening. Florida State researchers visualize an enzyme structure.
Yes, sulfite reductase, using cryo-EM. It's crucial for sulfur metabolism, that rotten egg smell enzyme. First time see its 3D structure.
And that helps understand what exactly?
Basic chemistry, environmental processes, even how some pathogens work.
Yeah.
It's foundational knowledge.
And progress in fusion energy. Type 1 Energy completed an initial design review.
They claim it's based on the only currently implementable physics for a viable fusion plant. Still early days, but progress.
We also saw Maxium launch an AI platform for health and performance coaching.
Right, described as a human-centered AI coach, leveraging AI for personal wellness optimization.
And Intel's tackling a big challenge, cooling those super powerful AI chips.
Yeah, chips exceeding 1 kilowatt each. They're looking at everything from early thermal design to advanced cooling like integrated cold plates, even liquid coolant within the silicon stack.
That seems critical if AI keeps getting more powerful.
It absolutely is. Heat is a major bottleneck.
And BioFidelity introduced tech called Inspire to improve next-generation sequencing.
Making it more efficient by removing background DNA. That's a boost for the biomarker market, especially in diagnostics.
Now for medicine, FDA alerts seem prominent. An updated warning about some blood collection tubes.
Yes. Cade Lee's Lebertechnic's safe T-fill tubes used with Magellan Diagnostic Systems. Risk of false positive lead results persists, so there's an import alert now.
Crucial for accurate testing and updates on COVID vaccines.
FDA is recommending the autumn 2025-26 shots be monovalent, targeting the LP.8.1 strain, which is dominant now.
And a shift in their overall approach.
Seems so. A new framework limiting general recommendations mainly to older adults and high-risk groups, plus requiring new trials for future approvals in healthy adults.
Okay. And Pharmacy Times highlighted managing toxicities from new cancer drugs and pharmacists' roles in identifying drug-induced issues.
Right, especially mentioning risks with fluoroquinolones. Also stressed multidisciplinary work for safe plasma therapy.
On the global health front, a grim situation in Sudan with the cholera outbreak.
Devastating. Over 170 deaths, more than 2,500 affected just last week, mostly Khartoum and Omdurman. MSF says facilities are overwhelmed.
Meanwhile, the WHO saw 124 member states adopt a global pandemic agreement.
Aimed at strengthening cooperation, preparedness, and fairer access to vaccines and treatments. Though, notably, the United States didn't join the final agreement.
The World Health Assembly also extended plans on maternal-child nutrition and moved to regulate digital marketing of breast milk substitutes.
Important public health moves.
Yeah.
And a diagnostic advance in the UK, an ultra-rapid genetic test for brain tumors.
Yes, developed there. Identifies tumor types in hours instead of weeks. Reportedly 100% accurate in its first 50 uses, could be transformative for treatment decisions.
That sounds incredibly promising.
Okay, let's shift to sports. Formula One first, Monaco Grand Prix analysis.
Lando Norris took the win for McLaren, his second of 2025. Leclerc second for Ferrari, Piastri third in the other McLaren.
Verstappen fourth, Hamilton fifth. So Norris closes the gap on Piastri in the championship.
Yep, just 3 points between the McLaren teammates now. Really heating up. Lots of talk about strategy, incidents like Bortoleto and Antonelli, Gasly's crash.
And reactions from the teams. Horner on Verstappen, Vasseur on Leclerc.
Pretty standard post-race analysis. Also, Victor Martins gets an FP1 debut with Williams at the Spanish GP.
Got it. Now, boxing.
Uzbek amateur Samandar Jalolov won his quarterfinal, securing a medal. But there's also tragic news.
Oh.
Former pro champ Jinjiro Shigeoka collapsed after his fight on May 24th. Needed emergency brain surgery for a cerebral hemorrhage. His future's uncertain, likely retirement.
Awful. A stark reminder of the risks. Okay, UFC.
Ian Gary won the main event at UFC on ESPN 66 by decision. Michael Morales got a TKO win at UFC Fight Night.
Any big news outside the octagon?
Nate Diaz says he wants to return, mentioned wanting fights with Conor McGregor, the Trilogy, or Max Holloway.
That'll get fans talking. Soccer next.
The big one is the UEFA Champions League final is set for May 31st in Munich, PSG versus Inter Milan.
And domestic league news.
Napoli won their 4th Serie A title, even got received by Pope Leo XIV. Al Ittihad won the Saudi League, and Werder Bremen fired their coach.
Okay, basketball.
Yeah.
NBA playoffs update.
Conference finals are ongoing. East Pacers lead the Knicks 2-1. Game 4 is today. West. Thunder lead the Timberwolves 3-1. Game 5 is tomorrow.
So Pacers and Thunder looking strong. NBA finals start June 5th.
Correct. And quickly in tennis, Mira Andreeva is through to the second round of the French Open.
Okay, wrapping up with some regional news from across the United States. California first.
Governor Newsom announced results from joint law enforcement operations in Bakersfield, Oakland, San Bernardino. Thousands of arrests, vehicles recovered, guns seized. They're reporting crime reductions in Oakland and Bakersfield.
Attributing it to collaboration and tech. What about Texas?
State DSHS updated on that measles outbreak in West Texas. Now 729 confirmed cases since late January. Sadly, 2 deaths in unvaccinated kids. Active transmission still happening in several counties.
A serious situation. New York.
Governor Hochul announced reported gun violence is at its lowest level since they started collecting data back in 2006. Significant drops in shooting victims and incidents in certain areas compared to last year.
They're crediting state investment and local collaboration. And Florida.
A suspect was shot by police in Polk County. State Ed Commissioner Manny Diaz Jr. is apparently interested in the interim presidency at University of West Florida, and a bill to ban cell phone use in K-12 schools during the day is headed to Governor DeSantis.
And finally, Illinois.
A bit of nature news, a bald eagle was sighted at Chicago Executive Airport. Reminder that the species has recovered, no longer endangered.
That's nice to hear. So quite a range today. We've touched on everything from international political maneuvering and domestic policy shifts.
To mixed economic signals, the incredibly fast pace of science and tech, both the advances and the challenges, like cooling those AI chips.
Right. Plus the complexities of global health, migration issues, and of course the latest scores and drama in sports.
It really covers a lot of ground, shows how interconnected things are.
Absolutely. So here's something to think about. How might those fiscal pressures we talked about, like the United States debt ceiling and rising bond yields, ripple outwards? Could they connect to, say, international market swings or even influence big bets on things like crypto?
Or maybe consider how a policy change affecting shelters on the U.S.-Mexico border links up with those broader global discussions on human rights and migration that international groups and academics are highlighting. What connections do you see between these different threads we pulled today?